It seems Pokemon prices are climbing up yet again, and this is actually after a lot of us thought that we'd be entering a quieter period. The big driver at the moment is obviously Pokemon 151, and the rise it's had has been crazy, and I will show you some 151 cards in just a second, but I have to admit that this is strange because one side of me feels like, yeah, of course, okay, 151 was always gonna climb like this, it's obvious. But then the other side is like, wait, is this just a little bit too quick, too soon? I don't know, something does feel a little bit off. And honestly, there's a lot of buyouts happening across the board. I think when we look at the market, we can really see if this is genuine demand or if something's happening, but it's really interesting to see what's actually happening. All right, first one, Charizard 151, and just looking at that graph right there, when we look at the end of the graph, we can really see big market spikes. Charizard was selling in February. There you go, for 258 USD. Definitely expensive, like not a cheap card whatsoever, but just recently, look at that right there. Top of the market went to 479 US. Huge growth for Pokemon 151. A lot of questions like what caused it? That's the question that's happening right now, and something that a lot of us are trying to like piece together, because part of me is like, oh, is it because Fire Red Leaf Green? Is it because Pokemon Pokopia came out? Because if you saw, I just saw some crazy stats that like 2.2 million copies or something like that was sold in 4 days. That's crazy, right? That's the first time I've actually seen a video game, if you wanted to buy the physical version, it was sold out on Amazon and a lot of places. So there's a big spike happening there. Is that transferring over to the TCG? That Charizard just spiked very quickly. And the pull rates aren't that difficult. I suppose the Mega Charizard, which I will be going over later in the video, that's really taken a price hike. Is that kind of just taking all these with it? But then what doesn't make sense is other cards in 151 are also climbing. So right here on that Squirtle, and there you go, just at the end of the graph, you can see that big market spike. Right here, the Squirtle was selling in December, so pretty much at the end of last year for $43. So very attainable card. You could have had, if you wanted this in your collection, sure, you got to pull out 40, 45 bucks to have this card in your collection, right? Right now though, look at that, selling for 136 US, and that is quite high. Like that's actually a really expensive card. That's pretty much gone up 100 bucks in a matter of a few days, pretty much. Like, and that's all to do with that 151 hype. People are just like, they're obsessed with this set. And I did make a video about like the 10 Pokemon investments that I'm looking out for. 151 is definitely, anything 151 right now is so hot in the market. People just really are connected to this set. I just don't know if we're ever gonna get a set like this again that's so nostalgic and memorable. And now it just, people are just thinking, hey, is it now or never? And I feel like that's really come about, especially with all this Gen 10 hype that's happened all pretty much recently. Also, there's someone that keeps asking me in the comments, they go, Phil, why aren't you wearing your wedding ring? And they just keep asking. And it's actually because since my wedding, I put on a fair bit of chub. So because of that, and it's really humid here in Queensland, it can be hard for me to actually take off when it gets really hot. So my wife's not too happy about that. I'm not too happy about it. If you do know, I am locking in right now. I have told all my audience, I'm on a bit of a health kick right now. I'm actually trying to lose this weight. So I have been on just a small health kick at the moment, and that's not gonna happen. So the wedding ring is definitely gonna be back on. Now, moving on to the 151 Elite Trainer Box right here. In December, we're selling for $351, which is insanely expensive. If we pull this all the way back to last year, $206 for one ETB, which is still expensive, but right now the ETB is selling for 570 USD. That is so crazy. I remember when Evolving Skies booster boxes surpassed $400. I think this was in early 2024. People thought that was insanity. And look at that. The 151 ETB that only has 10 packs inside, whereas you got 36 packs of Evolving Skies, is already now at 570. The Pokemon market and investing in collectibles has just taken off. Also, if it is your first time on the channel and you've been enjoying the video, I just want to say hi. My name's Phil, and I've been creating content about Pokemon and the whole collectible market for around 2 years now. Definitely feel free to subscribe for consistent Pokemon content. Now, interesting, a lot of questions I'm getting is, hey Phil, the English 151, that's getting really expensive, but what about Japanese? Well, we can see that Japanese 151 is also climbing. It was selling at late December for 154 US. And we can see right now selling for $244. So definitely the Japanese 151 booster box has had slower growth, but really it's still an amazing product. And I actually am a massive fan of Japanese 151. the booster boxes and product because of course it does have the Master Ball Reverse Holo guaranteed in every single booster box. I feel like that made it so interesting. And Master Ball Holos, yeah, people aren't the biggest fans of them anymore, but back then they were such a big deal. So definitely Japanese is looking good, and it's definitely a bit more of an easier entry point at the moment. Now, before we move on, if you are a fan of Japanese Pokemon cards, then I do want to talk about today's video sponsor, Bai. Now, if you've ever tried to buy items from Japan, you'll know that one of the biggest challenges is that many stores simply don't offer international shipping. However, Bai solves that problem. Bai is a Japanese proxy shopping service, and it lets you shop from Japanese retailers and marketplaces. All you need to do is search for the product you're looking for. For example, here I'm searching for Pokemon cards, and Bai will show you listings pulled from major platforms. When you make a purchase, the item is first delivered to Bai's warehouse in Japan, and from there they pack and ship it internationally to regions including Oceania, North America, and Europe. So if you're trying to track down Japanese exclusives or just Japanese products in general, Bai is a very convenient option. Now, what's so cool, if you are a first-time user, then you can actually get 10% off your first purchase. All the details are in the video's description. A big thanks to Bai for continuously supporting the channel. Now let's jump back into the video. But it's not just Pokemon 151, because the Raichu from Paldea Evolved has also reached a new high point in the market. If we see the previous high point, it was selling October last year for around $62. Then it dipped down to around $50 US. And we can see right now selling for $75, so definitely a big increase for this Raichu as well. Great card, Sleepy Raichu. I think Paldea Evolved is one of those very rare sets where the illustration rares across the board are much more in demand than the special illustration rares. I mean, even with the Magikarp, that's the top chase card, and then you have the Tyranitar and this Raichu as well, both illustration rares that are very, very much in demand. But when we look at the special illustration rares from Paldea Evolved, honestly, it's a very unique set in the fact that the SIRs are actually all second place to the illustration rares, and the special illustration rares, to me, honestly, they do leave a lot to be desired. So it's such an interesting set for that reason. Almost every set has the reverse, where the SIRs are in demand and the illustration rares are cheap, though that is something interesting to see. And another one that's actually moving is the Team Rocket's Mewtwo. It did have a high point in the market for $582. Then it found a low point for around $377, and right now it's selling for $474. So definitely the Team Rocket's Mewtwo is probably, you had that point where it was going to be very, like, I don't want to use the word affordable at 300 and whatever it was. That was probably the lowest point you were able to get it. I actually think that would have been one of the best prices to get it. But then things can change, because even with Evolving Skies, like I wanted to buy the Glaceon VMAX, and I wanted to buy it last year, and then I looked at it and I actually saw that this year I'd actually be in a better position to buy the PSA 10 than I was like midway last year. So that's really interesting, because that usually doesn't happen. And you know what, that actually just got me curious, because I could remember that the Glaceon VMAX from Evolving Skies was more expensive at one point, but I just wanted to see if that was actually the case. And yes, I'm on the PSA 10 graded copies right here on Collector, and we can see that in October last year, the Glaceon did hit a market high for around $650 US, and it has actually dropped down a fair bit. Right now selling for $458. So there you go. Like, I thought at that point, like, oh, if I don't buy Glaceon VMAX now, I'm never gonna get it. There you go. It did actually drop in price a fair bit too. So $200 less than what I would have paid last year. So these price drops can definitely happen. It just depends when. I think with that Team Rocket's Mewtwo, right now, I'm feeling like, oh, maybe it's the best time you're gonna get it. But hey, like the hobby is a long game, right? If you play that long game, you can see. And there you go. I think right now, the Glaceon's actually at a yearly low for PSA 10 copies, 458. And the other lowest point are 447 in July last year. And here, yeah, $422 in May. Honestly, the Glaceon right now, to me, is actually at an okay price point for PSA 10, considering that I was happy to buy it. You know, I remember when it was quite expensive last year. Though really interestingly, Shining Fates is actually climbing. We can see that it was selling in December for $95 US. Right now, Shining Fates is selling for $115. Now, isn't a massive price increase at all. Shining Fates is one of those very rare sealed products, that and the Pokemon Go ETB, where it's like, wow, they just haven't climbed. There is a little bit of an increase right now. I do imagine that Shining Fates, everyone thought, oh, is it one day going to become expensive? Right now, I still think for an ETB that came out so many years ago, That's actually not too bad, to be honest. Also looking at the Mega Charizard X UPC, hasn't actually been on market for a while. If we go back here around when it released, it did sell for $386 for, one UPC, which is ridiculous, but it did drop down to around $143. Right now it has had a bit of a market swing, selling for $185 US. So definitely an expensive product, really good promos inside. I do wonder how this product's gonna go in the long term. We do know the Charizard Ultra Premium Collection from 2022 is definitely in demand. Will be interesting to see this one. Also, if you're wondering how I actually get my most up-to-date info about Pokemon cards, funnily enough, it's actually through my own channel's Discord. The community members there just work wonders, and with over 11,000 members, you actually always see the new card reveals, what's happening in the market. If you do want to join the Discord, the server invite is in the video's description. And of course, one of the most iconic new cards that have released is the Mega Charizard X. Around December last year, there was a low point that you could purchase this for around $438. And right now, it is selling for $738 US. Really big price growth on this Charizard in particular. Very good artwork. That has pulled in a lot of demand as well. I think a lot of people want to add these to their collections. But one that's actually much more expensive than this one at the moment is actually the Gengar from Ascended Heroes. Now the Mega Gengar, the price, there you go, in February it was around $834. Though right now selling for $1,000, just pretty much $1,000, $1,017 right there. That is crazy to see that it's actually more expensive than the Mega Charizard X, which I personally think the Mega Charizard X is a better artwork. But of course, the specific pull rates for Ascended Heroes are super difficult as well, and Gengar does have that Gengar tax. It's too early to tell right now if this card, I do think that there's definitely room for it to drop. The biggest issue with Ascended Heroes that a lot of people know of as well is those specific pull rates for special illustration rares. It's not that difficult to pull a special illustration rare. The problem is when you actually want that specific card, whether it's the Mega Feraligatr, the Gengar, the Mega Dragonite, if you actually want those cards and you're trying to chase those cards, I would not do that given how difficult the pull rates are. And of course, the Charizard from Celebration is really interesting as well. Was selling for $111 in December last year. Right now selling for $177. So there you go. Some cards are really also going up with this new market movement. I do think the Pokemon market is something we really need to be looking at right now because 2026, there is so many questions about this year. I personally thought it was going to be a year where the market slowed down a little bit, but with all these things happening with Pokemon Day and how it released Gen 10 and all this hype, Pokemon Pokopia, there's so much happening outside of the TCG, and that spillover effect is all coming in now. So there's a good chance that the market won't slow down either, and that's something that we have to monitor. But I'm just thinking if we truly are about to enter another buying cycle, because there's going to be a lot of things to consider if that's the case. Though I think the question right now is, how do you build a Pokemon portfolio that actually grows in price? Well, I do break that down in this video on screen here. Within this video on screen, I go into how to actually build a Pokemon collection that grows in value over time. If you enjoyed this video, click the video that's appearing on screen. Check that one there. Appreciate you watching, and I'll see you on the next video.